Work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work. Hard work, hard work. Hard work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work. Hard work, hard work. Hard work, work. There you go.
Forward.
Hard work, hard work. Hard work.
Fall in. I'm so sorry. Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all know what it is. It's me, Trey the Commish, and you're rocking with your favorite vets on Net First Formation, Warner Sports Talk. So come on and fall in as we get ready to get to talking about engaging in what's been popping, what's crackling around sports in general. Of course, it's a Friday, so you know what that means. We're getting ready for NFL action, in NCAA action. We got a fight this weekend in WNBA action, and then we start to more MLB. Y'all know the hunt for Red October. The hunt for October is on and crack popping. So there's a whole lot going on. So of course we start off with some little light work. Of course, as I just stated, the WNBA. Excuse me. As we know, they're in the women of the National Basketball Association are enthralled in what is going to basically crown their champion. What's crackling, DJ? What's clapping, boy? So check this out, DJ. I seen you and Drake got together. Atlanta versus Detroit. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, Detroit pulled it out. What was that experience like? How did you like being in Detroit, meeting up with the old okay, ball, he said. All right. Yeah, tragedy. Unfortunately, y'all took an L. But did you expect anything less? Like let's keep it 100. I ain't gonna get too far into it, but Detroit is showing that they are someone to be reckoned with. I seen it coming. I can see it in the air. I keep on telling y'all gonna recognize. I talked about Detroit being the up and coming and finding a way, and I talked about Tua being an up and comer and finding his way ahead of time. I'm telling you, NFL teams, if you need a scout, holla at your boy. I ain't go to school for this stuff for no reason. But in any case, real quick before you get too far into it, shout out to my man DJ. Also DJ, I took up officiating, man. I ain't started. I've been just doing flag football so far. I ain't did anything else yet. I had to holla at you. But okay, so back to what I was saying. WNBA. The D was lovely as he put the money on the Falcons. Lions smoked us. So WNBA, New York Liberty, Connecticut Sun, Game 3, trying to break the tie, as is a little contentious over there. Of course, being in a 5-game series and only having and tied 1-1, someone's going to take the lead. Of course, on the other side of the spectrum, when you look at the Las Vegas Aces and the Dallas Wings currently down 2-0 with the possibility of being ousted out of the tournament and giving the Las Vegas Aces an early rest period as they wait to see how it plays out with the Liberty and Sons. Of course, when you look at that, it seems like they're definitely on a mission now. Let's take in consideration how they started out. And remember, they started out with the addition of Candace Parker, who, of course, ended up with an injury, so she has not been able to play. But yet they have still been able to show dominance in around in particular times. So just imagine this now. Aja Wilson, last year's MVP, was not granted the MVP this year as it went to Breanna Stewart of the New York Liberty. So now, of course, after that game in which she wasn't announced as a champion, she goes and drops a 30-piece. I think they locked in and ready to go, looking for the opportunity to face off with the New York Liberty for the most part, and their high-powered offense and nestle of players and stars over there. So it should be a good one. But currently, like I said, Liberty and the Sun tied 1-1 in the best-of-5 series. The Aces up 2-0 in their best-of-5 series. Both play tonight. Be sure to tap in and check out your just WNBA basketball. It's a whole vibe. Additionally, coming up on Saturday, if you ain't been paying attention, if you're into the pugilistic arts, it's going down. Alvarez Canelo and Jamal Charlo face off and for one of Alvarez's belts, the super heavyweight. He fights as a super heavyweight, middleweight, in which is going on. Basically, Charlo's taking a risk and say he got to be great. And sometimes to be great, you got to take on those great fights. And this is wonderful. So, of course, on Saturday night, be sure to tap in. Usually this fight would have went on earlier in the month, i.e. around the middle of September, because that is Mexican Independence Day. However, it didn't go down because it was already previous scheduling. So Canelo Alvarez had to settle for the 15th or the 16th. For the 30th. So be able to tap in. I'm very sure we'll be able to talk about it. Gonna have to hit my man Jay Ness and them ASAP Sports. We're gonna have to set something up. Moving on, right? So some things before we get into the pigskin, let's talk about the round ball. So, of course, first and foremost, if I would be remiss if I didn't do this. Shout out to the fam and them, all the players in the military basketball community. As we know, it's about that time of the year. It's time to get strapped up and get locked in as the all-service training camps are started to determine who was going to be the 12 players to represent the armed forces, respective armed forces teams. That's Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, in all service tournaments, men and women. I'm definitely going to put forth the effort to get those players separate times. We'll have to get with those coaches to see when will they be able to get on, as we can sit up and talk about it as they get ready to face off. It was a lot of talk when we had Coach Justin Johnson on, when he was a lot of talking when we started talking about the armed services, where he's like, Coach Justin Johnson is like, it's only been hot for the Army currently, but the Air Force has been the dominant force in when it comes down to our services. I don't know. Coach Bartley has something differently to say about that. So we're definitely going to tap in with that. I want to see if I can get those coaches at minimum, at least the head coaches of the men's and women's at certain times. If not, or, if we can, we'll go ahead and rock with the head coach and the assistant coach, and maybe even some players. We might dedicate a whole week to that so we can sit up and guide it and get that. But of course, I know the Army starts next week in their training camp before, of course, we find out who the squad is going to be from them. I'm gonna have to tap in with Coach Richardson to find out about them, or we just wait and see it. And y'all see it posted on the First Formation Facebook page. But that's definitely going down. Armed Forces coming up swiftly. We're gonna tap in and get with them and get some insight of that. Of course, if you've been paying attention, shout out to the Military Basketball Association, another entity when it comes down to military basketball in that community, as they have made huge strides and made some moves and put it in perspective. As now we know, CBS has signed a multi-year deal to broadcast the championship game from the Military Basketball Association. This year is going to be going down, upcoming season. In the season is going to be going down 2024 in the city of Philadelphia, Temple University. So that should be a great thing. So, of course, start to make your plans now to be there so you can see the action and see where it all takes place. If not, you can basically just catch it on CBS right in the confines of your home. Throw a party, make it happen. But NBA round ball, right? So what we have here, I think, is a failure to communicate, actually. So now I'm very sure everyone knows about the whole situation in which the blockbuster trade between the three teams, those three teams being the Portland Trail Blazers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and Phoenix Suns, in which the trade, of course, hinged around the unsatisfied, unhappy Damian Lillard, who had requested a trade to be traded to another team. Of course, he requested to be traded to Miami. In state, of course, the NBA came out with a letter depicting or letting it be known that if, and saying, yes, he is entitled to be traded, but what we will not do, I'm paraphrasing, what we will not do is allow for him to dictate where he will and where he won't go in state, especially for a player without a no trade clause. In state, the Miami, I'm very sure, from what my understanding is, Miami came forth with a couple of deals to where they was looking to trade Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, and a couple of picks and some swaps, in which it wasn't enough for any team, particularly that in Portland. So it didn't pull the trigger. However, the trigger was pulled on sending Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, in which enacted the Portland Trailblazers receiving Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, and Toumani Camara, 2029 Milwaukee Bucks unprotected first round pick, and two unprotected right spots in 2028 and 2029 from the Milwaukee, from the Bucks, and from the Bucks, and as well as from the Phoenix Suns. Of course, that being DeAndre Ayton. The Suns, what they get out the deal, Nusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen from Nurkic from Portland, Grayson Allen from Milwaukee. They additionally get Allen Nasir, get Nasir Little and Keon Johnson from the Portland Trailblazers. And then, of course, like I stated earlier, the only thing that the Milwaukee Bucks got out the deal was Damian Lillard. Now, with the move, what has come to mind is sports books have clearly moved the Denver Nuggets back, and now the Milwaukee Bucks are the odd favorite to win the NBA championship with that move. For me, in my opinion, of course, if you're out there, please let it be known. Holler at your boy, let me what you think. I don't even think that Milwaukee won this trade, let alone puts them in position to be top dogs at the end state. Now, of course, with the possibility of a lineup with Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, give or take, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, Chris Middleton, that can be a formative squad. But in-state is, how long does that go when taking consideration different injuries in the season? How does that go? Will that be enough? Will that be enough to win a championship or even just to compete in 82 games? When I look at it, I think with the players in which they got, I think Phoenix, along with the players in which they already have, might be a problem. Even more so than what they was before. When healthy, Joseph Nurkic is pretty dominant, or he can sit up and be a force on the boards as well as from an offensive standpoint. Then you add Grayson Allen, who, he is an antagonizer and he can get off and go off at times. So you add that to a mix with the KD. This gives him, in my opinion, it gives them benches. It gives them a little bit of a bench as well. It gives them added firepower from the bench. And then they got Nasir Little and Keon Johnson. That could be a problem in itself. And then when you look at it, even then, I give the Portland Trailblazers a bit of an edge when you look at the fact that they added Drew Holiday and DeAndre Ayton. Now they get a young talent in DeAndre Ayton, hopefully to build around and sit up and make a difference. They already got Scoot Henderson. They drafted at the beginning of the year. In the draft this year. They still have Anthony Simons, who was up and coming. It was being shown that he could be a problem. Why Dame Lillard was there, and then you add Drew Holiday. Now, hopefully, Drew is just going to go there to be the architect or the offense and put on something, unless they decide to buy him out and put him in the market to where now you have an opportunity for another teams, as has been reported that teams such as Miami, Philadelphia. There was a couple other in which are looking at potentially purchasing his services if he is bought out and becomes a free agent after this trade. So I don't know where it comes off with what are the odds makers looking at and seeing and believing now that the the Milwaukee Bucks are the front runner, where you still have teams as like Denver, the newly retooled Phoenix Suns. We're not going to count out the Lakers. Their off season was pretty nice. And of course, you hear all those teams are in the West. And then, of course, there's still powerhouses in the East. We might finally get to see what it should have looked like with Warriors. I mean, not the Warriors. Speaking of the Warriors, I'm going to backtrack in a second. We finally get a chance to look at what it could have been, or get some glimpse of what we probably could have in Chicago. We already know, we see Philly's going through something. Boston has retooled. I just don't see Milwaukee as that team to sit up and have to really be in conversations when you talk about the championship. I'm not seeing it, but hey, I'm just a guy that sits here at home and talks sports. Additionally, even taking into consideration, the Los Angeles Clippers are backing up and running seemingly, as it has been stated that both their all-stars, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, are healthy going into the season. So take this in consideration. They're up for a extension already. Cowboys. They're up for extension already after signing in 2019. Over the course of 3 seasons, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have played a total of 142 games, in which they currently have a record of 96. I think it was 96 and 46 amongst them as playing together in them 142 games. Last year, they only played 38 games together, in which they end up being ousted. They made it to the playoffs, but they were taken out in the first round. So now the expectancy is that Paul George is able, is well-bodied and able. Kawhi Leonard is able-bodied and ready to go. Of course, they have the likes of brought in Russell Westbrook, who's going to be most likely running the point for them. There still has been conversation in reference to James Harden, although we don't know how that's going to go, how that's going to play out. But just imagine if they were able to get a James Harden in their arena on their squad, what they could potentially be. But of course, we're where we are. We are where we are. And of course, Lawrence Frank has talked about and discussed how they look at it, because of some conversations have came up in reference to the contracts, i.e., including Tyronn Lue and his contract, and they're basically saying that the lack of extension is not a precedent of which you're using to say you need to win, or we are not going to extend any of y'all. So it's some time to go down. But again, just talking about that's another focus of another potential dominant team, yet again out of the West, that can be that can be problematic for anyone in the East, as well as the other front runners and contenders in the West. Additionally, just speaking on Golden State just signed Rudy Gay to a 1-year deal, to where now again filling another roster spot. As we know, they were looking potentially to fill Dwight Howard in that spot. Of course, seemingly they passed on it. They signed Rudy Gay, added him to the roster to give them it seems like a little more firepower defensively. Veteran leadership. Let's just say that veteran leadership going into the season. So it's funny. I mean, of course, we can become nostalgic and get caught up a little bit when you take a look at these names and stuff like that, because at one point, Rudy Gay was a problem. You still have Klay Thompson that's on the squad, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green. So there's some power out there. They still have Kuminga and Moody that are young and up and comers that they can play. And then so it remains to be seen. Is Golden State going to look to put themselves back into position to be in the championship? to win the championship. We don't know yet. Of course, it all gets played out in court, and in that time frame, we're going to be able to determine how it goes. But yes, the season is almost upon us. NBA action back at it again. Of course, we know season starts later in October. We're just a couple of days from the beginning of October, and then we start to run it down. So, of course, we'll be here talking about it going in. More to come, of course. Moving on, getting into college football. So I seen what seems like I didn't go check to do my credibility checks, but seemingly, if it is true, Coach Lincoln Riley of the USC Trojans is showing that he wants all the smoke. But I'm not going to say it. Like I said, I'm not going to state what I saw due to the fact of I didn't go check the credibility of the statement, because in this day and age, people can make things look and seem as though without any real repercussions, and then you get people reporting it, and then they become in violation, and so on and so forth. But what we do know for a fact is that there are some games that's going to be going on and going down this weekend, of course. Starting out actually tonight, as you have two top 25 teams that are facing off, that being the University of Utah. What's good? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. What's good, Applewhite? Good morning, brother. Glad to have you formation with us. But we do have a game tonight. The University of Utah, 10th ranked University of Utah, face off against 19th ranked Oregon State. Another Pac-12 battle, which of course is going to even make or break one team to where they're probably going to be thrusted into the stratosphere of not being a top 25 contender. That is, unless Utah loses. If Utah loses, then they're definitely going to fall from the top 10, which currently there are 4 teams in the top 10 of the top 25 that belong to the Pac-12. A win from Oregon State will probably catapult Oregon State up the standings and up the ranking, and Utah drop. Of course, that's the best to keep that type of validity in the conference. If not, definitely what's most likely going to happen is Oregon State will fall outside the top 25, and Utah will sit to see who in the top 10 loses, if any, and be able to ascend that way. Of course, number 6 Penn State will be taking on Northwestern this weekend. The 22nd ranked Florida Gators will be facing off against Kentucky Wildcats. Number 1 ranked University of Georgia takes on the SEC opponent in Auburn, so that'll be facing off. Georgia's 4-0, Auburn's 3-1, but it does have 1 loss in the SEC already. Number 2 ranked Michigan will be facing off against Nebraska in Big Ten action. The 3rd ranked Texas Longhorns will be hosting 23rd ranked Missouri. 24th ranked Kansas, as we see if they are the real deal. Does Kansas start to pick up where they left off last year before their quarterback injured? We will see. The 23rd ranked Missouri Tigers will be facing off against Vanderbilt. 13th ranked LSU Bayou Bengals will be taking on the 20th ranked Ole Miss Rebels, as we see Lane Kiffin trying to get back in there, playing the old guy in Kelly. 9th ranked Oregon will be facing off against Stanford. The 14th ranked Oklahoma Sooners will be facing off against Iowa State Cyclones in the Big 12 action. The 11th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish, coming off a tough loss. As we all know, the debacle of the personnel ended on the field wasn't there against Ohio State, will be facing off against a hot stepping 17th ranked Duke University. As we all know, Duke is not usually synonymous with football and high expectations, but they are cooking this year. A potential upset, as it has been stated. This is the upset alert of the week. Can Duke do improbable things and knock off Notre Dame, sending them to yet their second loss as many weeks? We will see, of course, tomorrow morning. 21st ranked Tennessee will be taking on South Carolina. Then SEC action. 12th ranked Alabama faces off against Mississippi State. The 7th ranked Washington Huskies will be facing off against all right team in Arizona, currently 3-1 in the Big Ten. I mean the Pac, currently 3-1 in NCAA, 1-0 in the Pac-12. So we'll see if Washington can keep that hope alive, as currently the highest ranking team in the Pac-12. That's in the top 25 at number 7. The 25th ranked Fresno State Bulldogs will be taking on the Nevada Wolfpack. And of course, last but not least, in the top 25 games, the 6th ranked USC Trojans go into Boulder, facing off against Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders and company in the Colorado Buffaloes. In what is, of course, still a battle from supremacy within the Pac-12. Although, 8th rank. I stand corrected. The 8th ranked USC Trojans. Although USC currently sits behind Washington, I wonder, being from their premise and depending on the outcome of this game, can USC hop back over Washington with a dub in Colorado? Will we see greatness, or will we see a lack of when it comes down to this game in Colorado and USC? Of course, there's a lot of hype for it. Of course, all the stars are going to probably be out between the two schools in Colorado. But I hope that doesn't overwhelm the Trojans as they go into Boulder. And we see how they were dismantled, how Colorado was dismantled by Oregon, but of course USC is not Oregon. Oregon is not USC. So it remains to see how it's going to go down. What's going on, Mike? How you doing there, sir? I ain't forgot about you. I'm gonna come check you out. I'm gonna come see you one of these days. One more, and I'm gonna catch you, especially before you get into your when does y'all camp start for Air Force all service? But yeah, so we're gonna see. Is Shedeur? I know this could have been a different fight or whatever case like that. Does Coach the Prime and the company come show up to shock the world and take on and make it look as though USC is dismal, and show that what they went through Oregon was just a slight mishap, and they can rectify it? Or do they do the same thing? Or are they going to be overpowered by a high-flying USC offense and maybe a powerful and defense, a problematic defense in this game? Is Caleb Williams going to show that he is clearly and undoubtedly the key when it comes to USC, and that Heisman Trophy talk in which he has been enthralled in early this year, being a winner, is going to tap back in? Do we see all that? Is that what we're going to get a chance to see at USC in Colorado? As we know, this game will be, I believe, an early game. It did get the prime spot, so 11 a.m. is going down, so everyone to get a chance to see it. USC, Colorado, tomorrow morning. You know what? That's perfect, because I have to work in the morning, and I'll be off by that time and be back here to watch it with no problem. Okay. 13 we're going to be here. Okay, 2 weeks before we head to Fort Moore Farm. Okay, not as I want to definitely try, like I was saying earlier, I'm going to try to get all the head coaches for men's and all the head coaches for women's at different points for the armed forces, get the coaches on to talk about it. So please be on. But like I said, I want to stop by your office so we can chop it up. What I would like to say is Colorado is no match for USC, and there will be another blowout in this game. So you know what, Sauce, I would like to believe that, but every time I try to believe that, USC tends to do some other stuff. So I got to be very yes, sir. So I gotta quell my my thoughts, and because I just don't know. Like, I thought they would have took care of business outright against Arizona State. And Arizona was, giving it to them, catching them slipping here and there. And USC pulled it off late. But You can't have that in Boulder. It's a different type of environment. It's going to be emotions, of course, because of what it is. So I can't just come out and say, now USC has done damage in state, or they've been close with certain teams, and then they tend to pull away late. But saying that's not. I don't like that. You say needs a couple of years. Well, true that. True that. And that was I seen a conversation in reference to I seen a conversation in regard with LaShawn McCoy, and LaShawn McCoy was talking about how Dave Lanning basically did all that and spoke in reference to what happened with Colorado, talking about the clicks and all that type of stuff. And it's like it was different. Like Deion taking consideration, although Deion has been in the news or whatever case like that, his team was not ready to take on a perennial powerhouse in Oregon. I think they might be a little more better set to take on perennial powerhouse USC than they were as Oregon. We all know what Oregon brings to the table. Usually they're fast and strong in all those aspects. But LaShawn McCoy was talking about how when Dan Lanning took on another potential perennial powerhouse last year versus Georgia, they got ran out the stadium 42-3 or 9 or something like that. So it's like, that's cool. Saying let's humble ourselves a little bit, because when you faced off into what was supposed to be similar to where you was more, y'all got laughed out the building. So to sit up and do that to Deion, even though we know that, saying the expectancy was that they were living Cinderella-esque, and it didn't play out as, Cinderella didn't make it back. The clock struck 12 and she was out there bad. So basically, when taking consideration, you got to humble yourself. So I'm presumably hoping that Colorado doesn't force Coach Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams to have to humble themselves. And that is actually just going to be a good game. Whatever it is that we thought we were supposed to get is hopefully what we get. I don't want to see another situation like TCU versus Colorado or USC versus Arizona State, or who was it that they played earlier in the year that kind of like was out there. So I just want to see USC go and do what they're supposed to do. No different for if they was playing Utah or something like that, like compete, go out and compete. Now, if we lose a close game based on, the fact that USC played their game and Colorado was just able to play a game that that mirrored that, then I'm fine with, taking the L. But not if we stupid mistakes, costly penalties, fumbles, interceptions. Let's get it together, Trojans. Let's go. Victory. Not going to be a good game. Going to be a blowout. I take a blowout too, as long as we're not on the opposite side of the wrong side of that blowout. But of course, like I said, that's the game for this coming weekend. Top 25. There's a plethora of college games, but those are the top 25 games. I'm very sure we're going to see some games to where it's going to give some teams to basically catapult themselves, because a couple of, like I just mentioned off, there's some games where there's some there could be upsets, or teams can lose, and that's going to take someone out. It's going to force someone else to walk in as we get closer and closer and closer. Now, additionally, as we all know, the Pac-12 has been decimated to where there's only 2 teams remaining in the Pac-12, that being the Oregon State Beavers and the Washington State Cougars are the only 2 teams that remain in the Pac-12 still. So in essence, what has happened is that has forced the CFP committee to shelve the thoughts of having an extended playoff for the final 2 years of the up and coming tournament, or CFP tournament. And so the plan was initially to extend for the last 2 years before they had to, because on the after 2025 they're going to have to renegotiate the pact to re-sign another deal as far as the CFP goes. So what they were going to do for the final 2 years was play the extended 12-man tournament to see what does that do, and see does it make a difference. Now that was all based on the fact of having the Power 5 conferences, and then they were going to go, and then of course you have the other 5. I mean the best of 5 that play. So now that is potentially going to be off the plan, because initially the initial plan was to take six conference champions, was to take the top six conference champions. That's the rest of five, the Power Five, their champions, top seeded champions, and then add the top six ranked teams after that. Now with the potential of a Pac-12 team, the Pac-12 just being down to two teams, the likelihood of that happening is less than none, because now you're basically looking at providing a team of a two-team conference and giving them basically an automatic bid into the CFP championship, due to the fact that they only have two teams, and then taking that away. So there, even though that's still a possibility, that is one thing. Additionally, what they have is they're looking at potential. There has been talks in merging. I think it's the WAC or the MAC, one of those, into the Pac-12 and creating that conference. But then, of course, what you look at is that becomes a situation to where now because there's two former Big Ten, Power 10 teams that are no longer in a Power 10 conference are now added to this. Does that give them the opportunity to where they can have that other spot? So now you're allowing two best of five, other five conferences to be in now. That kind of like skews the pool, I guess you could say. Other conversations has been that they can switch to a 5 and 7 format, to where they have the 5 power conferences and then still give the best 7 after that. But of course, that would have to be renegotiated, and then that would have to be revoted on again, and they need a unanimous decision, where already one conference head has stated that he's not going to vote for that. He's going to stick with the best of 6. And then, so that's where we have it. So currently, it's seeming like the option to have the final 2 years played in a 12-man tournament are going to be shelved due to the decimation of the Pac-12. And then at the 2025, they'll just come back and renegotiate and talk about doing the expansion then. All up in the air. So yet that has to be seen yet. Colorado front line not going to hold against USC. We'll see. Like I said, it all goes down tomorrow. Come this time, correction. By the time this show ends tomorrow, that same time, we'll be starting out, in a couple of hours later, we'll be able to determine what happened. So, speaking of what happened, last night the NFL had their fourth Thursday night game of the season, pitting the Detroit Lions against the Green Bay Packers. I came out telling y'all Detroit is going to win the NFC East. North. The NFC North. Detroit is going to win the NFC North. I already said Detroit is going to win the NFC North. I said that the New Orleans, although I might have to backtrack on that a little, New Orleans should win the NFC South. Dallas, Washington, or Philadelphia are going to walk away with the NFC East. Hopefully Dallas, because I don't want to hear Bishop's mouth about the Eagles. And the San Francisco 49ers are going to win the NFC West. Those were my predictions. And so far, I think I'm on it. But in any case, last night, Detroit Lions pulled up to Lambeau Field, took on the Green Bay Packers, in which Jordan Love was 23 for 38, 248 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He did accumulate 5 sacks for a loss of 43 yards. Aaron Jones, who was out with a hamstring injury, came back, carried the ball 5 times for 18 yards. A.J. Dillon was 5 for 11. Jordan Love totaled it twice himself, but it accumulated to 2 yards, negative 2 yards. In total, the Green Bay Packers rushed 12 times for 27 yards and 1 touchdown. Romeo Doubs led the receiving corps with 13 targets, 9 receptions, 95 yards. Javon Reed was 3 for 55 on 5 targets. Samori Toure was 1 for 35. DeGrasse pulled in 4 for 34 on his night. Christian Watson was 2 for 25. Tucker Kraft pulled in 2 for 5 yards, and last but not least, Luke Musgrave was one reception with 1 yard and 1 touchdown. On the other side of the spectrum, the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, like y'all got to peep Jared Goff, man. Jared Goff is showing why he was a Super Bowl quarterback. Like, we can't forget that. Jared Goff is like 4 or 5 years removed from being a Super Bowl quarterback. Although it was a bad game and it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, in-state is Jared Goff is a Super Bowl quarterback. He's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. However, he is a Super Bowl quarterback. Although they did get some help from the officials that year, because it probably should have been Drew Brees and company as opposed to Jared Goff. But in any case, what happened. We got the Rams in the Super Bowl, and that's what it was. Jared Goff last night, 19 for 28 for 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 sacks for 20 yards. David Montgomery trying to revitalize himself. Said at the time in Chicago wasn't really him, but he's showing that he is this dude in Detroit. David Montgomery, 32 carries for 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you had him in your fantasy, you cleaned up. Definitely. That's 32 yards alone, 32 points alone. Khalif Raymond had 1 carry for 40 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 carries for 40 yards. Not bad for last but not least. Jared Goff was able to walk off 2 carries himself for 10 yards. Josh Reynolds, 3 receptions for 69 yards on the night. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. Sam Laporta, 4 catches for 58 yards. David Montgomery, another 2 points, 20 yards. That's 4 points there to add to. Jahmyr Gibbs was 4 for 11, 4 catches for 11 yards. And, of course, last but not least, Raymond, another 1 reception for a -2. In-state, Lions get the win, 34-20. Jordan Love and those interceptions didn't do him any justice. Of course, like I said, you look at Jordan Love's interception, you look at the interception of Jared Goff. But in-state is the Lions put up 34-20. Lions is showing they are a force to be reckoned with. Currently 3-1 in their campaign, 2-0 away. They've knocked off their division foes. I think the only game they lost was to who did they lose to? Seattle. And that wasn't and they should have had that game. Right now, actually, Detroit Lions should be sitting at 4-0 undefeated. One of the other 3 teams undefeated. But I mean, it is what it is. But at this point, they have knocked off 2 of the other 3 division foes in their division. They have yet to play Chicago. They don't have Chicago at least for another 5 to 6 weeks. So currently, they're the division. They're sitting as the division. They're sitting at the top of the division easily. Like I just think. Well, correction. That's their first division game. They have Carolina. That's the next division game next week. And then after that, they have Chicago. So Chicago, I don't foresee being a match for the current Detroit team, which you see. Looking at the current Chicago team, Carolina might be a little different. But right now, Detroit is clicking on all cylinders and showing that they are not the team of yesteryear. And that they could be formidable. It's funny, like it's crazy when you look at it. Jared Goff goes from being a Super Bowl quarterback with the Los Angeles Rams to being traded to the Detroit Lions, in which Matthew Stafford was put and sent to the same Rams in which Jared Goff left with a couple of years later, just to win the elusive Super Bowl trophy in which Jared Goff couldn't. But now the Detroit Lions are being in prime position to be effective on the team in which Matthew Stafford was on, and couldn't make it happen. And honestly, I think you could say with lesser talent. I mean, I'm not saying that Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford, but we'll see. Of course, other games that's going down as we go through it. I make my predictions before we get ready to slide up out of here. Please join along and tap in if you got to. First and foremost, the Atlanta Falcons currently at 2-1, but facing off against the sometimes disappointed Jacksonville Jaguars, who are currently 1-2. They are playing overseas in London this weekend, so it's going to be an early morning game, 9:30 in the morning for those that are going to try and tap in. 9:30 morning game, Falcons and Jaguars. I would like to sit up and say that we're probably going to have an awakening of the Jaguars. Calvin Ridley might be up for a game against his former team in which he last played for. Initially, I think I was thinking that the Falcons was going to be my pick in this. But you know what? I think that Trevor Lawrence and company puts it back together. I'm thinking that the Jaguars will only be victorious this way. So I'm going with the Jaguars for the win. Getting back to 500, sending the Falcons to 500, and then we get on to week 5. Next up, the Miami Dolphins against the Buffalo Bills. As we saw, this is a division game. You saw the Dolphins come out hot last week, putting up 70 points on the Denver Broncos squad. I don't see another 70-point game in their cards. However, I do see potentially that they continue to show some dominance. Again, it's against Buffalo. It's in Buffalo. Jalen Waddle will be back in suited up as he has cleared concussion protocol. So if they did all that without Jalen last week, we might see some. We can see some glimpses of what they did last week. So I think Miami continues to stay undefeated, and they will get Buffalo in this game. But I would not be surprised if Buffalo was able to pull it out. I'm just going to keep it real. But I am going with Miami in this game. Next up, the battle of, let's call it the Navy Blue and Orange Bowl, because that's what we got, basically. That's the only significance we can put on it. So represent Cyro 5 Military Fraternity Incorporated, that Navy Blue and Orange. That's what we got here. Navy Blue and Orange Bowl. The Denver Broncos, currently 0-3, facing off against the Chicago Bears, currently 0-3. In all actuality, this could be a coin flip, possibly. But what I do think is that the Denver Broncos are rejuvenated, and they will find a way to get a dub in this one. I just think it's unfortunate for Justin Fields. I know he is doing his best. I seen it this morning where Bart Scott basically talked about how the draft class of 2020, I think it is, or 21, basically the draft class with Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance is atrocious. It was just not the class. And so basically this is a continued product of that. Justin Fields probably a better backup right now, so he can get some tutelage under his belt, and then come back and get an opportunity. Right now, he could be hurting himself more than anything with his continued play. But I just don't know if he has enough. I'm going with the Broncos in this one. Russell Wilson to get it. Sean Payton to get it figured out to get the dub. So that's the Broncos so far, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, and on to the next. So what we have is another battle, of course. Baltimore Ravens facing off against the Cleveland Browns. That's putting Deshaun Watson versus Lamar Jackson. So what we know is there's no Nick Chubb in the backfield. However, the Browns do have Jerome Ford, who has assumed to be serviceable, as well as bringing back Kareem Hunt, who was a little bit serviceable prior to Jerome Ford, showing his abilities and pushing Hunt out. And then we have the Baltimore Ravens, who are lacking in the running back area due to the fact of their inability to keep their running backs healthy. Gus Johnson, J.K. Dobbins, like, you don't know who's going to be in the backfield for the Ravens, in which a run game suits Lamar Jackson well. When he won his MVP his MVP trophy, it was due to the fact that he had a run game that was able to kind of like balance out the running and passing ability of him. So with the lack of that, it seems like he's not the same quarterback that we've all seen in the past. But in any case, a run game is needed. I don't know what we're going to get in Jerome Ford coming this weekend, but what we do know is that the Ravens are always lacking in that area, so they have to already know how to get away with it. So I'm going to get the slight edge this week. For me, is the Baltimore Ravens going forth to get the dub over Deshaun Watson and the Browns. Now, I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson isn't going to have a good game. I'm just saying that I think the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens will have a better game. But we will be seeing that. Next up, Cincinnati Bengals facing off against the Tennessee Titans. Last week, the Bengals did get their first win, in which Joe Burrow stated that he'd rather risk his playing as opposed to risking the Bengals going 0-3 to start the year out. I don't know where that logic came from, but it was his logic, and it did work, giving the Bengals their first year win of the season. But they will be taking on the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans aren't making that hot. Ryan Tannehill and company, not the best at this point. So I think I'm going to stay with the new $275 million man in Burrow and ride with them to get the dub over the Titans. Next game, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Next game, Los Angeles Rams taking on the Colts. As we know, this is the fourth week, which means all the teams have players on IR will be eligible to come back next week. So that means the likes of Cooper Kupp, if recovered, can be back. We already know we got other players that's potentially coming back. But last week, Gardner Minshew was able to take the Colts to a victory. Los Angeles Rams, not so much, and especially I was disappointed because I just knew that they were going to hit their newly found receiver, Puka Nacua, immense amount of times, but that didn't happen. He preferred to go to Atwell. It seemingly didn't work out as well, and they took an L on Monday night. But now they got the Colts. I'm not sure if Anthony Richardson is going to be in the building as he recovers from the concussion protocol. But Minshew was serviceable. He did go and get some time. Maybe they give Maybe they give Richardson a little more time to recover and go once more with Minshew. This is a potential winnable game for them. Of course, next week, as we stated, both when you look at it, this is a team that currently has two prime candidates that is on their IR that hopefully they'll be back next week. That being Cooper Kupp for the Los Angeles Rams and John Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts, which they definitely need some running backs back in there. Zach Moss was pretty good this weekend, but can he continue on with that? Is Taylor coming back? Will Taylor be traded? What is the case in that? It remains to be seen. But in this game, I think I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams over the Colts, not knowing who's going to be the starter for the most part, or even if Anthony Richardson comes back, will he be effective enough to get the dub? I think the Rams figured it out this weekend, and they get a chance to knock off the Colts. Next up, another game which has a returning player. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be visiting the Boot in New Orleans, bringing back Alvin Kamara. As we know, David Carr is going to be out some games. James Winston will probably most likely take the helm for the Saints. Gives me a little pause when you take in consideration that Jameis got the helm last week in the second half, and in 2 halves he could not amount any points, and then the defense allowed them to accumulate enough points to get the victory. So now, with this being said, Tampa Bay's coming off a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, but Baker Mayfield hasn't looked that bad. But like I said, I think that the Saints are positioned to win the East. I mean the South, and that hasn't changed for me at this point. So in this head-to-head matchup, I feel that the Saints will be victorious, probably not by much. They are an underdog actually, a favorite 3-5. So we'll see. But I'm going with the Saints in this one to get the dub. The Commanders and the Eagles. It would be interesting. I'm all for the Eagles losing, but I don't think they're going to lose this game. Currently a 9-point favorite. Washington Commanders. Sam Howell shows some promise. The receiving core hasn't been that hot. You would expect it more from the likes of Dotson and McLaurin, Samuel. Robinson has been an all right spot for them. But I just think the Commanders are going to be victorious. I mean, are not going to have enough this particular time. I did predict that they will probably split for the year, but I just don't think it's going to be this game. So I'm going with the Eagles to get the victory and continue to be undefeated. The Vikings and the Panthers, both teams 0-3. Difference is you have a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins versus the rookie in Bryce Young. As well as Kirk Cousins has some key individuals at receiver in Jordan Addison, the rookie, as well as Justin Jefferson, who was supposed to be the newly minted all-pro wide receiver in the league. Not faring out too far. I guess is a little different, as we know that Dalvin Cook moved on to after being released now in the Jets, New York, although he's not doing that well. But of course, when he was with Minnesota, it was a different type of game. Maybe that could be a little difference in why Justin Jefferson seems to be having problems. Same thing, Adam Thielen is gone. But like I said, replaced with Jordan Addison, who isn't bad, but for the most part, it hasn't been working out in Minnesota. So I think they get a freebie coming up against the Panthers. Of course, the aforementioned Adam Thielen, who is there being the go-to receiver in that offense. Bryce Young's favorite receiver. He did not play last week. I think he gets back in there this week. But in case, I think Minnesota gets their first dub, getting the win over the Panthers. Next up, the Texans versus the Steelers. Unlikely source as the Texans were able to knock off the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. I'm very sure that was unforeseen. No one's seen the Texans, especially in that environment in that way. In Duval, went and handled business and left back out with a W. I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. I think Pittsburgh is going to have enough to knock off Texans at home, and then leave Houston with the W going back home. I got the Steelers in this game. George Kitchens is starting to be electrifying. Najee Harris still a Bell running back, in which he's probably going to get a chance to eat this game and live up to the hype in state. I think the Steelers are going to be victorious in this game. A couple of games left. 4 more games. 5 games. Las Vegas Raiders versus Los Angeles Chargers. A battle in the division. The Raiders, currently, we already know Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out as he is in concussion protocol. I don't think he's cleared yet. So the expectancy might be he's going to continue to be out, in which O'Callahan or Brian Hoyer is going to get the start. I don't think that's going to be effective enough for the Chargers, although they are without Mike Williams, but they still have Parmley, Eckler, I think, will be back. Joshua they got weapons, as well as Justin Herbert. So I think this is going to be an easy game for the Chargers when they get the victory to get back on 200, get back to 200 for the year and continue to push for the supremacy in the AFC West. Next up, the Cowboys coming off a loss, in which another unexpected loss versus the Arizona Cardinals. We'll be taking on the Patriots in D-Town. I just don't think that we have two letdowns back to back in this aspect of a figure team where the Cowboys are expected to win. The Patriots have been showing that they got some fight in them, but of course, after 3 games, only 1-2. That fight, it just has been exactly that fight, and it has been not too much of a bite. Cowboys 6-point favorite, and I think they take care of business. I think Cowboys get a dub going in at home versus the Patriots to enact 3-1 for the year. 2-3 more games. The Kansas City Chiefs will be facing off against the New York Jets. I wondered, is this a game to where, just like we seen last week with the Cowboys and the Cardinals, the Texans and the Jaguars, do we see a similar type situation with the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets? Does Zach Wilson slay the beast in Patrick Mahomes, where the defense becomes dominant and Wilson becomes above average, to put them in place to where they can get a W in at home versus the Chiefs? I'm all for it. Anything to diminish the opportunity for the Kansas City Chiefs to get going. Let's see it. But in any case, I'm going with the Chiefs to get this W. I'm not going to be foolish. I don't know if that is the case. Had it been the Giants had it been Aaron Rodgers, maybe we'll be having a different conversation. But at this point, I think the Jets aren't going to have enough, especially at the quarterback position. And I think the Chiefs are able to pull this one out. 2 games left. Well, one more on Sunday. Of course, the San Francisco 49ers will be taking on the improbable Arizona Cardinals. We see what Arizona did to Dallas Cowboys last week after the disrespect of his old team, as Joshua Dobbs went to his own team store to go to see about purchasing a jersey for himself, his own personal jersey, in which it was nowhere to be found in the team store of the Cardinals. And he basically just walked out. Is he going to sit up and take that into this game? Or is it going to be a chip on the shoulder? What is going to be the ask? But that we do, the 49ers get Brandon Ayuk back. He's back in the offense. So added firepower. Are the Cardinals able to keep up with the 49ers and pace out Joshua Dobbs and company? James Conner totes the rock tremendously. He's always a problem to watch for, to be able to get those hard yards. But I just think it's going to be a little hard fought for the Cardinals. I think the San Francisco 49ers get this and remain undefeated for the year at 4-0. And last but not least, NFC East, NFC West battle, as the Seattle Seahawks will be traveling to New York to take on the Giants, in which Daniel Jones picked up the pace and looked better than what he did his first outing. Of course, he was magnificent in the second game, brung back to earth a little bit in the third game. So in this fourth game, we don't know what to expect. Geno Davis, after last year's performances, in which got him a payday and some extra time, isn't looking all that great. However, they have put together 2 wins for the season. So the expectancy of what they can do is still, we can't say yet, but in this case, based off of what I've seen between the 2 teams, I think Seattle has been a little bit better. So although I don't want to, I'm going to go forth. I'm rocking with Seattle on that Monday night, in which that should give them another victory to keep pace with San Francisco in the NFC West and not fall too far off. So those are my predictions for this upcoming week. Be sure to tap in so you can see it. All my fantasy players out there, go and make sure you make the moves to put your teams in position to get the W's. But you don't know what you got to get. It's going to start getting interesting. We got buys going to start coming up. You got players that are out or coming back. So those choices that you made are going to start to formalize, and we're going to see how it all plays out. But right now, a power hour, quick and fast and furious. Look forward to tapping with y'all either Monday or Tuesday to go over the week as it came out, and then of course on and so forth. I look forward to speaking to y'all. more to come. Greatly appreciate y'all rocking this morning. Look forward to talking to y'all later. That's Trey. I'm Trey the Commish. I'm up out of here. First Formation. Peace.